I hope you guys are enjoying the meeting so far. We're halfway done. I'm here to introduce the Division of Grants and Agreements and the Division of Institution and Award Support. The acronyms are DGA and DIAS. And here we have today Tiani Robinson. She's Division and Grants, and Liz DeHart. She's from DIAS. Please welcome them. Okay. And then they will introduce themselves individually. Okay.
Everyone have a good stretch. This is going to be very exciting. Okay. This one?
I said that one.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Ready?
Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome. My name, as Tracy said, is Tiani Robinson. I am a grants management specialist in the Division of Grants and Agreements, also known as DGA. So I'd like to take this quick moment and acknowledge I have a couple of colleagues in the room with myself. And to my right here is Ms. Janelle Ghazi. She's the team lead. And then way in the back, I'll have him stand up, is he's right here. To my left here is my acting branch chief, Mr. Rashawn Ferrier. Thank you both for your attendance and support. So this afternoon, I'm going to talk with you about pre and post award management. So let's start out with saying who we are. As I stated in my introduction, we are the Division of Grants and Agreements, also known as DGA, and we are the award makers. So your proposal's last stop of the journey is with us, okay? So also, we are tasked with providing business and administrative support and assistance, and we do that via several mechanisms, site visits or business assistance meetings, as well as outreaches and in-reaches, which is like this meeting today. So we're here to help you always, and I just want to touch on this diagram here to share the lines of communication. So as principal investigators, you are tasked with speaking directly to your cognizant program officer, especially when it's a technical question, and or your sponsored research office or officers or your AOR, as you may know them. Conversely, I as well also speak quite often and commonly with the sponsored research officers as well as the cognizant program officers. And then the way that I basically do my job is by using this little document that's listed on here, acronym PAPG, and that stands for the Proposal and Award Policies and Procedures Guide. So from now on, of course, it will be called the PAPG. So DGA has this mantra. It says, ask early, ask often, right? And the basis for that is we feel that if you communicating with us regularly, when there are any kind of issues or problems, we can hopefully mitigate them and or definitely come to like great solutions. So ask early, ask often, especially as it pertains to your budgets, right? So you all are familiar, of course, with preparing budgets, and you know that your budget always lists your costs to get the research done. So a requisite of your proposal along with your budget, as I just stated, the budget page lists the costs. Well, the accompanying document, the budget justification, actually is your detailed breakdown of all the costs. Please, please, please hear me when I say, for every listed cost on that budget page, please be sure to explain it in the justification, including your indirect cost rate any of the listed costs. So I'm the one that reviews these budgets and budget justifications, and I won't even begin to tell you of some of the errors or inconsistencies. And I see a few folks giggling, so they're aware of what I see. So please, if you list a cost on a budget category, just please make sure that you're justifying it and that you're giving us a detailed breakdown so that we don't have to bother you to ask for further clarification or explanation. The award or agreement notification. I believe this may get emailed to your AOR or your sponsor research officer, but as the principal investigator, you really should be familiar with your award notification. It has a wealth of information in it, from the solicitation you may have submitted the proposal under to your terms and conditions, which once you draw down, as my colleague who's going to talk to you after myself told me earlier, 1 cent. And Janelle tells me that a lot too. Once you get that first bit of money, you're now binded to this grant. And so your terms and conditions are in that award notification. It's imperative as well, if your grant is like a continuing grant, well, when you first get it, yeah, you're happy you got the money, you got the award. So yeah, it's easy to pay attention to the award notification. I would encourage you to revisit the letter so that you're staying abreast of what your terms and conditions are. It lists your cognizant specialist as well as your program officer and a wealth of other information. So just be mindful and just try to revisit that pretty regularly. Next, which you've heard about this all day, I'm sure Jeremy referenced it earlier and I just referred to it. So the PAPG. Familiarize yourself with it. Again, that's the policy, right? So when you're preparing your budgets and you're putting your costs down on the budget, just look at some of the policy in regards to some of those categories. Again, if you need us, we're here, but familiarize yourself so that you can make sure that you're in compliance. Because if not, once I do my review, you'll be hearing from me. So pretty much once we award you the grant, you have statutory rebudgeting authority. So the majority of the budget, you can rearrange funds as you see fit to get the project done. In certain instances, however, you will need NSF's approval. And the main two that came to my mind were that special budget category of participant support. So if you need to move funds out of that budget category, or if you need to move funds into especially that F4 other, you need prior approval. Within this slides, which we have available so that Sandra can send it out to you all after the meeting, there's a link to the prior approval matrix. The other situation, and again, hear me loud and clear, is if there is any kind of change to the scope or the objective of the project. And again, my dear colleague here has shared with me that those types of requests must have my approval, not just your program officer. So you should constantly be keeping your program officer aware of what's going on with your project, good and bad, right? But for those types of changes, I just want to make it explicitly clear that DGA should be involved and should be giving you that approval when there's a change to your scope or your objectives. And then lastly, but actually more important than all of what I've mentioned, are your other requirements in getting this federal funding, and that is your reports, your annual reports. We always welcome them early or earlier. You don't have to wait until they're due. But if you need to wait until they're due, we just can't emphasize enough, get them in a timely fashion. And we ask that because when they're not submitted in a timely fashion and when our system deems that they're now overdue, any subsequent proposal actions or funding that come through has to wait until the reports come in. And so also, I would be remiss if I didn't share that it's not just you as the PI. If you also list other personnel on your cover page, right, then those individuals as well, if they wind up having reports that are overdue, it will also impact the processing of those other actions. So get them in early if you like. We will never turn that down. That will make us ever so happy. But if you're not able to get them in early, then work please towards definitely submitting them in a timely fashion so that any subsequent actions that you submit, it can go through smoothly. There won't be any delays. I think that's it for me. I will now turn it over, unless there are questions at all, I will now allow my colleague, Liz DeHart, to share some information with you all. And just to note as well, tomorrow, the open house session, all of my colleagues that I mentioned earlier, as well as Liz DeHart and myself, we will be here for the open house. So if between now and tomorrow, because I know you all are kind of on information overload, if later on today or first thing tomorrow, you think of some questions, know that we'll be available for you to answer. We will be available to answer those questions for you. Thank you so much for your time.
Tiani.
Hi, everyone. Like Tiani kindly said, my name is Liz DeHart. I work under the DIAS team, which has 4 components. You heard from Jeremy earlier in the policy office. We have a systems team, and then we have a partner team for oversight, the cost award branch, and then the branch that I'm in, the resolution and advanced monitoring branch. I do a lot of single audits, IG audit resolution, monitoring visits with Tiani, which are great. I would just like to say here out loud, I do not work for the Inspector General. I am not an auditor, so we are happy to take hypothetical questions today or tomorrow, should anything come up. So like I said, these 4 teams, you may have recognized some of us from reverse site visits we did with some EPSCoR grantees recently. Yep. Okay, so 4 keys to succeeding site visits and in your grant in total. If the IG comes knocking, writing internal controls. You do have to have documented policies, and they should be detailed about who does what. We like to give the example, if someone won the lottery in your office and left tomorrow, would someone be able to pick up their tasks and make sure that your award is still being managed well? So writing that out is super important. As you all can imagine, adhering to those written policies is also important. So it's great when you have wonderful written policies. If you are not following them, the same problem applies. Documenting. We love documents. In the government, if you didn't document it, it didn't happen. So if I'm going to use the example of subawards because that one will come up. If you are doing risk assessments and monitoring of your subawards, if you do your SAM check, if you're checking their single audit, print that screen, someone date it and sign it, because if you say, oh, we check them every year and we check the debarment checks, we did all these things, if we can't see where you did it or someone checked a box and then signed it, it didn't happen. And then asking, as Tiani said, please ask lots of questions. We love questions. And then when you ask them, you can come back and say, but we asked, we tried, and that counts. Prior approvals, as Tiani said, big one. Okay, so I like to call this scary story time. I do IG audit resolutions, so I see all the things that the IG is looking at. I'm going to give you some big buckets that they're looking at right now. Subawards. Please do a risk assessment in the beginning. There's a lot of things that it should include. It's all in the uniform guidance. We also have some requirements. Every year should be checking single audits. There should be a lot of checks going on within subawards. And there's a citation here for the uniform guidance. Participant support. Please be very careful with participant support. We see a lot of things that come up. Staff luncheons are usually not in participant support. That one has come up. Allowability and allocation. Okay, so if you are buying a big piece of equipment and the IG comes in and says, but there are 5 other people using this piece of equipment and they're using it on other awards, but you charged it all to us, we'll have questions. Please make sure everything you put on the award you are using for the award, or you are, bucketing it out appropriately. Purchases near or after the period of performance. After the period of performance, you guys can imagine. However, near the end, if you all have $100,000 left in your award and you just bought a piece of equipment for $999,000, we have questions. We have questions, and it has nothing to do with what you were doing, and you didn't talk to Tiani first. Lots of questions. Unsupported costs. This will come up in a minute, but record retention. If you do not have the purchase order, any documentation, the approvals, all those things, again, it didn't happen. Document it. And this is going to go off subawards. The record retention period for awards is 7 years from the date of your last financial report, the submission date. If you have subawards that ended before your prime award ended, their record retention rate is not from the end of their award, it's from the end of yours. So if theirs ended 2 years before yours, they need to keep their records for 9 years. We've had that a lot. The IG has come in and said, where's your subawards documentation? They said, oh, they don't have it. It's now your responsibility to figure it out with that subawardee because it is no longer ours. That one has come up a good amount. I'm just going to throw 2 more in. The IG has been looking at indirect costs a good amount. For universities, you have the, at the date of the award, ability to use that rate. However, if your rate changes, you have to show that you are adjusting it. So for example, if you put in a proposal 6 months before the award date and your proposal and your indirect cost rate has changed since that proposal, you need a check to go back and say it's higher or it's lower, and to make sure that you're using the correct rate. We've seen that one a good amount. For people who are not in institutions of higher education, please make sure you're following those guidelines as well, because that one comes up. Fringe benefits is also a new one that we're seeing. Larger universities usually have that under control, I'm going to hope. Smaller organizations, there are a couple ways to do fringe benefits. I won't go too far into the weeds in that one, but if you have questions, we're here tomorrow, like Tiani said. The other thing that I would like to say, we have some resources. The IG published a promising practices document, which is really great. They took these buckets of things that they're seeing a lot and pulled out from universities who are doing things very well. And in that promising practices document, you can find links to those universities' policies. And so you can see what they include, how they're doing their steps, what the IG is looking for should they come knocking on your door. I think that's all that I have for those. This is Tiani and my contact information. We're happy to be in touch if you all need anything. Again, we'll be here tomorrow from 2:30 to 5 for the open house. 3:30 to 5, right? 3:30 to 5. And then you all will have access to this presentation. This has all the links that we've talked about, the prior approval matrix, the promising practices, and then a couple of links to our pages that have useful resources as well. We're happy to take questions, both real and hypothetical, if anyone has any. Sure. Wait a minute. Thanks so much. I feel like I went quick.
Yeah, that was. I was looking at the time, but that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm running a T2 project. You know, this involves multiple institutions. And I'm working in the South Dakota School of Mines. So we have a nice policy about the rebudgeting. So in principle, no matter how small the change we want to rebudget, we need to submit the form. No, let me explain. We need to submit the form to our university, and the university somehow process this. I run into a question that is one of our institution, University of Delaware, and they told me that as long as they don't change the scope of the project, within 25% of the total budget, whatever they change, they just change it. They don't need to go through the leading institution. Is that something against the NSF policy or?
And they're a sub-awardee, did you say that?
Yes.
They're a sub-awardee. My
Yes.
colleague behind you is shaking his head, Rashawn.
So we are not, like other federal agencies, we do not have a percentage cap on rebudgeting. So if as long as those costs are allowable, you don't need prior approval. But as always, be courteous to your prime awardees. Make sure they're aware of certain costs. But as far as getting an approval, or they don't need an approval because it's over a said percentage, we don't do that here at NSF.
But
we do not have that.
let me just add one more. We have some IG audit fun. If your scope of work has changed with that subaward, you do need to come into the program office.
That is clear. That is clear.
Because we have disallowed
Well,
quite a few of
the
those.
reason why our institution wanted to have a paperwork done for any change is because somehow our institution told me that we need the Office of Sponsored Program needs to write an amendment to the sub-award.
So
You are supposed to follow your organization's policies and procedures. So if that's an in-house requirement for your school, because you're the prime, sorry, okay, thank you. Okay, sorry. Okay, so what I was saying was, because you're the prime, I believe, and then you're asking about your sub-awardees. So the flow down is from you to them. If this is a requirement of your university or organization, then you must comply with that.
Okay.
For NSF, we do not need any kind of formal notification or request. And like Rashawn shared, we don't have a cap or a threshold of when a requirement or a notification is in. Check that link when you get the presentation for any kind of request that will be needed for prior approval. But from the situation you're sharing for NSF, no, we do not require
So it's
anything.
more like an institution.
So it's just your institutional policies and
Okay.
procedures.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
You're
and-
welcome.
I'm just going to add on to that. If you, like Tiani said, if you all have more strict policies, that's great. We're happy to make sure that those. So the thing that will happen is if something happens with that sub-awardee and NSF, the IG, whoever finds out, it is not our responsibility to manage that sub-awardee. If something happens, we say, okay, what are you all doing to manage it? So
You all as in the prime. So
As in
it
the
doesn't
prime
hurt
award.
you at all for the documentation.
Yeah.
Document, because if and when we come out or you get audited, you have your documentation to back up what was going on.
anyone else? How do I see if there's some online?
Yeah, I have a question that's just really starting to come up, and that is that we're doing a track two, put together a budget about a year and a half ago. And since then, inflation has started accelerating, and we didn't have inflation in our budget. And, if it stays as it is, it's probably manageable, but things are going to get tight. Is there any suggestions or thoughts on how to manage all this?
If you have great ideas, please let me know, because I also have a household budget. I think just keep in contact, and in your reports, please make sure that that's included. Your program, we all know that this is happening, right? If something happens to the program, in your reports, it should say because of costs, because of these things, because of these challenges, so that NSF is aware that that's what's happening. There's no more money in the pockets to pull out, so we can't do that. But please just make sure that if it impacts your program, that everyone is aware that that's going on. And if some budgets need to change, this is your lady.
Okay, so we're almost at time. We have one more question.
Ray from University of Alabama, Huntsville. I have one question on no-cost extension. So can we directly extend for 2 years? When you say extend no-cost or apply for no-cost extension, is it okay to apply for 2 years, or it is always for 1 year?
I don't typically see no-cost extensions for 2 years. I'm not going to say they're not allowed. Depending on how many you've already requested, you probably could come back in for another one. I typically see them in about 12-month increments. Okay?
Any more questions? No more questions?
Great.
Okay.
We'll be here tomorrow.
Yes.
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks, DGA colleagues. We're at the time now for a short break. We have about a 5-minute transition period before your break. Get snacks. And then the next thing on the agenda is the breakout session. So you will not return to this room. You will find one of the, I believe it's 4 concurrent breakouts that you want to attend. And I'm going to ask that we meet back in this main room at 3:35. You have a 5-minute grace period to get back, and we'll start the EDOC session at 3:35. Okay? Thank you.
Hello to everyone joining us virtually.